and the mayor pro tem, and Mayor Coons is online and chose not to try to run a meeting from Arizona, but we will include her at all levels. With that, Phyllis, can you lead the roll call, please?
Counselor Beltz.
Here.
Counselor Carey.
Here.
Counselor Lopez.
Present.
Counselor McKeel.
Here.
Counselor Oberst.
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway.
Here.
Mayor Coons.
Present.
Counselor McKeel, could you lead us in the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, we have the consent calendar before us. They include the minutes of our last meeting. Is there any discussion on that, or do we have a motion to move those forward?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got, thank you, Counselor Oberst for the motion and Counselor Beltz for the second. All those in favor of the minutes as read, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Rather than moving to public comment right now, I'd like to entertain our presentations. We have two of those, and the first one has got a tight timeline. So he would like to, and we would like to hear from him early. And this topic has to do with the Polk County Fire Burn to Learn event update. We had some discussion on that a month or so ago, and Chief Stange is back to provide an update. Go ahead, Chief.
Councilor Carey. Now I can move it back. Members of the council, Mayor Kuntz, I hope there's a cameo by that grandbaby. I appreciate you working with my timeline. I appreciate that. My name is Ben Stange. I'm the fire chief of Polk County Fire District Number 1. As Councilor Carey mentioned, we have a burn to learn coming up in town. We've had some burn to learns in the past, and they've inspired some discussion. We all know that there are training needs, and you have to balance those against something that is disruptive to the neighborhood and concerns about health and safety. So I wanted to come here ahead of the burn to learn to talk about why we're doing it, as well as what the precautions are that have been taken. So on March 29th, we'll be doing a burn to learn at Western Oregon University. They have some modular buildings by Rice Auditorium, you might have seen. They've been there for several decades, and they need to be demolished. This is an opportunity for a very unique training opportunities. What we're going to be doing, and I took this class decades ago. It's a very cool class. It's going to actually happen in two phases. The classes, the burn to learn that we're doing on March 29th, we actually will not burn them to the ground. We're going to burn them before, we're going to extinguish the fires before they're in what we call free burn. So they'll get through the incipient stage, they'll start burning, and we'll put them out. And the reason we're doing that is because these are going to be fires that are being set up and designed to ignite by fire investigators and fire marshals. They'll have GoPro cameras in the rooms. They'll be recording how these fires are starting. Firefighters will come in, extinguish it, and then they'll retain that footage. And then the following weekend, we have a 24-person class from fire marshals and fire investigators throughout Polk and Marion County who will be coming in to do a training class. Following that, the Oregon State Fire Marshal is going to be coming in and doing a 40-hour class approved by several national organizations with both law enforcement and fire investigators working on everything from fire origin to all kinds of stuff. It's a really cool class. Just for a second. So what you do is you do this whole investigation thing, you diagram things, you do evidence stuff, you do interviews, everything, and then you come up and do your presentation about how you think these fires started. And then you go to the tape. And with the GoPros that were in the room, you have guys saying like, I knew that shouldn't have been there. Or, I knew that burn pattern was wrong. I told you. So it's a very educational, really, really incredible class. I took mine probably 20 years ago and still remember it very vividly. So we're doing it. We have a really unique, like I said, training opportunity with several modular buildings all in one place. So you can imagine if you only had one place to burn, you could get maybe a couple sets, a couple people could go through a class, but we can set up a fire suppression team. We can set up engine companies. We can do several lights. We can do them all in a day. We can have all of our resources there and get almost 50 people through these really important big classes. So we're going to be doing that. Those classes will be wrapped up about the second week of April. And then a couple weeks after that, we'll be moving on and working on more of the suppression. And at that point, we will burn the remainder of the structure. So that's the training plan, and that's the value of it and why we think that this is worthwhile to do. Now, on the other side, balancing all the environmental stuff, right? So Western Oregon University has been working with a certified contractor to make sure all the asbestos mitigation is complete. Our understanding from all the reports is that there is no asbestos in any of it. There's no mitigation necessary. I say that's our understanding because we have been told that in every form, but we have not seen that reported through the official channels to DEQ. Until we see that through the official channels to DEQ, we still will not be doing it. It is the same, it's required actually, because it's a commercial facility, to do the same for lead. Again, our understanding is the same. There was no lead located, there's no mitigation needed, but we are still waiting for that to be confirmed through the DEQ. Once DEQ confirms that for both, they'll be able to go through the process with the City of Monmouth for their demolition permits. Again, we'll need all of those before we move forward with it. One of the other nice things about where this is located is we will be notifying all people in the community within 600 feet of where the structures are. So we'll be going out, and we don't mail this stuff. We actually go door to door. We do leave behinds. We try to make contact. We'll be doing that the week of March 17th. There are actually no residences within 350 feet or over 100 meters from any corner of any of these buildings. So because of where they're located with parking lots and other buildings sort of as a buffer, they're not in the center of a neighborhood or anything like that either. So we think that it's a very unique opportunity. We think that we are going through, Western's going through, and the city's going through the steps that everybody needs for their proper paperwork, and we'll be communicating in person both ahead of the initial burn to learn at the end of this month, and then once again with all those neighbors once we do the secondary one toward the end of April. So I wanted to come before you before we do any of that and see if you had any questions or anything I could answer from any of you.
Questions for the chief?
This sounds really cool. I mean, the whole process from start to finish. This is a fabulous training opportunity for not just your folks, but others from around the state. So good on you.
Thank you. If I get, you hear about different burn patterns from like accelerants, right? If you've heard of that, the splattering pattern. Well, I promise these are fire marshals and fire investigators from the state fire marshal's office. When they're coming in, they have some really weird things that they're trying out to try to throw people off. So, and one of the other things, when I did the class, and I apologize, I probably should have said this in my initial thing. So they'll actually, by having it all in one place, they don't know when the fires are going to start, right? Because if you think about it, they're starting a fire that might take a while. They're putting, they won't use it, but a hay bale, a lamp on a hay bale. It's going to start eventually, but we don't know exactly when. So people are kind of going around doing other things, and then it's like, oh, throw on your packs. This one actually torched off. So there's some patience and everything with it. So it's a long thought out process. But, yeah.
Councilor McKeel and then Councilor Lopez.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for really doubling down on checking for lead and asbestos. I know that there's at least one resident who's going to be feel much better about the burn and learn. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, President Carey. Thank you very much for the presentation, for coming preemptively to discuss this with us. As Councilor McKeel noted, we have received a couple questions in the past by residents, and what I hear in your words is real responsiveness to some of those concerns. One while we have this wealth of knowledge in front of us here in town, right? You mentioned the state fire marshal. You mentioned quite the conglomeration of folks. Is there anything that we can do to gain some value to our local fire district aside from just this, but having that brain power here while we're doing this, right? Are there efficiencies that we're taking advantage of for the benefit of Polk County Fire Number 1 or for Monmouth?
I think there are, Counselor. We are very intentional. I like to say that we get involved in agencies and associations and whatnot that help us sort of punch above our weight class, I guess I would say. There are times, without getting too specific, when our fire marshal needs to call on, well, let's say the state fire marshal's office, or let's say the, investigators from other counties. These are the sort of things that we do preemptively to build those relationships so that when he's making those calls in the middle of the night, that might be in a gray area of whether or not they're actually going to wake up one of their deputies in the middle of the night and be willing to send them out, that they say like, it's Polk County Fire, they help us out. Let's go ahead and help them out too. So it's helpful.
Thank you very much for that insight. Having personally experienced the very quick response times by your teams and also work closely with your fire marshal, I've been consistently impressed by the organization you run, and I'm excited, as Councilor Oberst is. I think this sounds really dang cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor.
Any other questions? I have just one. I've heard your presentation. Your planning is excellent. Your anticipation of potential hazardous materials is great. Are we to assume that you do this on every burn, the same sort of protocol? This is a little unique, but if you had another one, you would follow the same procedures.
I won't go get my bag, but yes, we have developed, and partly from our history of working alongside you, reaching out to other organizations really to develop a best practices, which we've actually given to several other organizations. We have a pretty extensive checklist. What I'm describing to you is only a part of the standard, what we're going through standard on every single burn to learn that we're doing. I will say, Counselor, I apologize. I am not planning on coming before you before the second one in April. However, if the city manager, one of you, the mayor, hears of anything from the community and you would like me to come back at the beginning of April, please let me know. I'm happy to do so. And of course, we're more than happy if you get the name and phone number of an individual who'd like personal contact. Of course, we'd be more than happy to follow up with them.
Thank you for that. And I think we'll probably respond in that way if we get something that's serious. And the same to you. If you feel like you've got one that might be a bit controversial, perhaps, you could schedule one in. There's a high level of confidence in you guys from this group and from the city. So, our trust is solid, and hopefully you'll trust us as well if there's a need to share that information. Okay.
Thank you, President. Just kind of a proactive, I don't know, looking at the city manager, maybe our communications director is planning to put out a notice about the fire department's precautions so that they won't be worried before they find out that everything is okay.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Madam Mayor, do you have anything?
No, just to wish the chief's son a happy birthday, and let's send him off to the family dinner.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you,
We
Counselor.
get to sing now?
The next of our presentations is an introduction of our community service officer, Donovan Ledoux, and I believe Chief Haynes will be part of that introduction.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Mr. Pro Tem Mayor today and councilors. I have the pleasure today of introducing our new community service officer, Donovan Ledoux. Donovan we were fortunate in this process. We had been without a CSO for a few months, and we were very fortunate, I think, to get Donovan in this process. He's somebody that I thought maybe for a little bit after we interviewed him was maybe overqualified. And so I had to have a sit down with him and talk to him about what this job entailed. And I think he's going to do a great job. He has about 20 years of experience in asset protection before this, and I think in a supervisory role for most of that. And so he's got a history of dealing with people, and I think even under sometimes stressful circumstances, and I think that will really help him in the job that he does for us. Primarily, what he'll do, well, I'll just tell you, we hired him January 1. He had about 2 months of training with other officers, and some of our officers had previously been CSOs before, and so I think that he got some pretty good experience with them. He's been solo now for about 3 weeks, and he's on his own now. And so this is one of those jobs, I will say, they cover a lot of ground and a lot of different territories. So undoubtedly, he's going to face some things that he hasn't gotten in training, and he will kind of learn along the way. But I think he's got some good supports around him. Just for those of you that maybe don't know or aren't familiar with all the duties of a CSO, to highlight a few, primarily what he will do is just general ordinance enforcement. So when you look up the Monmouth Municipal Code, anything that's in there is for the most part going to be up his alley. Parking enforcement, he hasn't done this yet, but he will do municipal court bailiff as a non-sworn position. He also will help us with some of our vehicle maintenance and transports. We have to get our cars to Dallas, and he'll help us with that. He will do some special events for us. He handles dog calls and cares for the dogs while they're in our custody. And I would say on average, I think right now he's got about 15 cases in his caseload, but on average, it's probably anywhere from 25 to 30 cases at a time that he's managing, as well as taking new ones that come in. So he's got a lot of things to do. We're very grateful to have him. And I'll just share just a real brief piece of history about the CSO prior to Donovan. We didn't have a CSO for many years. I think it was in 2009 that we created the position. There was many other cities that had CSOs, and we did not. And the way that we used to do it was we assigned grids to each officer in the city. So every officer had a grid, and what they would do on nighttime, as time allowed, is they'd go around and they'd look for cars that maybe had been sitting for too long or what they thought. But it wasn't very responsive. I don't know how productive we were, and I don't think that it was a good service we always gave the community, because they woke up with just a sticker maybe on their car or something like that, and they didn't talk to anybody. And we recognized it wasn't the way to do business. And we brought our first CSO on part-time and at 20 hours a week, and we quickly realized that 20 hours probably wasn't enough. And so I'd like to tell you now that even 40 hours, I could hire a few CSOs and they'd be busy. So anyways, but we are grateful to have Donovan. I was going to ask him really quickly just to share, if you wouldn't mind, on a daily basis, just kind of what he does.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. So far, a typical day starts with approximately, I'll just say 30 minutes of getting emails read, listening to voicemails, because already word's out that I'm here and the city is happy to have me and I'm feeling the love. So about, I'll say 30 minutes on average, because sometimes it's 15 minutes and done, sometimes it's 60 minutes and wow. Then there's the inevitable reports. Sometimes there's a report or two that hangs over from the day before, so I'll wrap those up in a timely fashion if I can. And then I can spend easily 2 hours driving around and drumming up new cases. Pretty easy to find. But also while I'm out there, I'm able to follow up on cases that I already have. So I have to be very part of that process when I'm in the office first thing in the morning is kind of looking at my to-do list and lining up how I'm going to tackle the day, because the follow-ups, it's not very efficient to just go out there and, oh, well, I've done this one. Now I'm going to drive across town. So I kind of try to be strategic and line up where I'm going to go, how I'm going to tackle the follow-ups that day. If I'm able to handle any follow-ups via telephone, I will do that as well. But usually I wait until the afternoon to do that because I find it a little bit more efficient to actually get a hold of people later in the day. Honestly, before you know it, 4 hours is done and it's time for lunch. And then after lunch, it's more of the same. Usually after lunch, I'll start with writing the reports for the new cases I've generated in the morning. And I'll go out, do more follow-up, find new cases, and I'm back by briefing time to wrap up any other reports I might have. So Chief Haynes is correct. It's easy to fill that 8 hours with the workload because during all of that, the best plans are great, but we're constantly fielding new calls and new complaints all the time. So sometimes your best laid plans in the morning, you have to be adaptable. And I kind of like that. It kind of keeps you on your toes and gives you something new to do. So.
Okay, thank you, Donovan. Anything else, Chief? And then we'll have some time for questions, I think.
I don't think, well, the only other thing I'd say is right now he's working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And he spends some time, if we have dogs that we've taken in and have them in custody and we need to care for them over the weekends, he'll come in over the weekends too. But primarily it's an 8 to 5 job. So, and I think that's it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer if I can.
Counselors, any question? Counselor Oberst.
Just quickly, if you're out driving around handling existing cases and you see something that you know is a violation, does that become a case or do you wait for the complaint to come in?
In most cases, it becomes a case right then and there. I actually find it more beneficial to start the case without a complaint because when I'm working with the person, say it's a residence and there's an issue to be dealt with, it gives me a little more latitude and discretion to give them some time as long as they're in good faith making an attempt to correct the issue. When you have the complaint, it kind of gives you a time limit. You feel the clock ticking.
For years, we've been, quote, complaint driven. And it is encouraging from the many complaints I've gotten sitting here from people about complaint driven. It's nice to know that it doesn't always take a complaint to have enforcement happen. So thank you.
Counselor Lopez.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you very much for coming before us today. I'm incredibly excited to have you join the team. I'm excited to hear that, our police department is increasing service levels in this area. As Councilor Oberst noted, that this is an area that we've heard, community feedback that there is a need, both in extended bandwidth in this position, as well as a little bit of a more proactive stance in addressing some of these things that due to the additional calls for service, other officers aren't able to respond to. So I'm thankful you're here. Welcome. We're excited to have you. I recognize that you haven't been in this position for a long time here yet. I'm curious about any collaboration that we're doing with neighboring communities in these efforts. I recognize that we border the city of Independence. I know that police departments work in conjunction very often. Is this another space where we're supporting each other and or learning from other communities?
We are. I think Lane can probably attest to this a little bit, but if you look at most of our codes, most of the municipalities around here, you'll find that they're very similar to one another. And so if we haven't dealt with something, it's usually we can be assured that our neighboring agencies have. And I have reached out to former Chief Mason before, for some administrative warrants that they had to use for different things they did that we hadn't done before. So we've always done that. I think being a smaller agency, we've had to do that for our sworn staff as well. And I think the same will be the case for Donovan as he does the CSO duties. And the other part of that is even the animal enforcement side of things. I mean, we primarily deal with dogs, but there's always the calls we get about somebody that trapped a skunk or that they trapped a raccoon or something like that, and they need some help. And those are calls that usually we will give to the sheriff's office and ask for some help because they have some more experience dealing with those things. So yes.
Any other questions or comments from the council? I have just a couple, and you've alluded to it a bit, Donovan, but what's the best way to initiate a concern? What's the best way to contact you?
Honestly, just calling the police station, the general number 838-1109. That gets our records department, and they can direct the call to my desk, and I have a voicemail set up if I'm not at the desk, which is more often than not, I'm not there, but that at least gets the voicemail there. It gets me a contact number, and I can get in contact with the complainant and start a case very easily.
And so you get back to the person who's making the allegation, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So we have that good feedback. One of the things that I would sort of invite you to do, and I know the chief says that many of these codes are very similar, and there's a lot of, cross-pollination across jurisdictions. I would encourage you, though, especially given your experience, to, if you see a code that may be a little out of date, or a code that maybe doesn't work in our community any longer, that you work through the channels that you would and see if there might be a code revision that could bring us up to speed, bring us into line. I mean, you've got experience, and you're obviously a very capable person, and so that would be welcome news to us, I think. So I would encourage you, if the chief will allow you. And then finally, you said he's working 8 to 5. A lot of people work 8 to 5. And if you need to make direct contact with a person about an incident, it might be good to have some flexible hours there. Show up a little late, stay a little late.
Those are things we've entertained in the past, and I will say that we've done that with our past CSOs. We've had them work till 5:36 just to do that. I don't know that we had a lot more contacts. I think it was nice to give that availability, but the nice thing, really in today's day and age too, is that usually when he is doing the follow-up contacts, he's always leaving a business card, or a flyer where they can get in touch with them or leave a voicemail and set up an appointment. And so I think that we'll kind of, ideally at the beginning, it was nice because the 8 to 5 put him on somebody else's shift and we didn't have to adjust hours. And I think that as time goes on, we'll kind of look and see if that's successful or if we need to adjust to maybe an 8:30 to 5:30. But, I don't want to ask too much for somebody either. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, it's yours to manage, Chief, and you'll do it well. And it just, for those watching and those in the audience, this is, your position has gone to 1.0 FTE because of the contribution the community makes with public safety fee. And so we're appreciative to have you on board. And I think, once again, we're giving our communications officer, some fodder, some information that we can get out and talk about how the city is working to upgrade our services and make the city a nicer place. So thank you very much. Anything else, folks? Okay, we're out. Good enough. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go back to our reordered agenda and any public comments. Sabra did not indicated that there were no public comments that she had. Phyllis, is anyone online or indicated?
Mayor Carey indicated that they have comments online.
Pardon me?
No one
had-
online has indicated they have comments.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We've got some scouts in the audience. If any of them have any comments they'd like to make, we'd welcome your thoughts. You're working for that civics merit badge, I get that. No comment. That's not a bad thing for a city council, to have a bunch of people in the, here and and no particular comments. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for being here and appreciate your involvement in the community, Scouts. So very good. Yes, sir. All right, with that, we'll move to our business agenda. And the first item on the agenda is consideration of adoption of resolution 2006, authorizing the city staff to apply for a TGM grant to fund the Trolley Rapid Transit Plan. Who's going to be presenting that?
Hello, my name is Carter Craig. I'm the community planner. I'm here to discuss a resolution we brought before you all to allow us to apply for a TGM Quick Response Grant. This is something we're doing in partnership with the City of Independence as part of our joint management of the My Trolley program. The intention of the study is to look at the question, how can we get the trolley moving faster down Highway 51? We've had some opportunities to look at stop data and consider a lot of the requests for expanding service, whether that be north in Independence to the site of the new food bank or better servicing the WU campus. That is, extensions of the route are going to come at a cost of achieving frequency along the route, the time between trolleys arriving at a stop. And that we think is a major driver in what is generating these higher ridership numbers. So there's concern that if we expand the route without achieving some time savings along 51, that we'll actually effectively lose a level of service, even though we're serving more areas, because we're doing it with less frequency, and it just becomes a less attractive service to riders. So the intention of the grant is to work with ODOT and others, and to hire a consultant and explore possibilities, whether that be timing the signals at Gun Club and 16 and 99, looking at alternatives like queue jumps for buses that allow buses to make sure they get through a light so that they're not stopping at 2 lights for 2 cycles, those sort of improvements. Another area where we're looking to make improvements is where the trolley route bows out at Atwater so that it can get around and maneuver to a suitable stop site. Ways to eliminate that slight detour, that could be another source of time saving. So those are sort of the questions we're going to be looking at with the help of a consultant, hopefully with this grant. Fred, the Planner of Independence, has reached out to the program manager and they encouraged us to apply. So I think that's an encouraging early sign of our applicability to this grant. So that's all I have to say. And I'm happy to hear any questions.
Any questions, folks, that we would like to have considered?
Point of clarification.
Yeah.
I know what a TGM grant
Oh,
is,
that's
but I
very
bet
good.
nobody else
Yes.
does. So not
Yes.
very many.
That's a great question. Thank you. TGM stands for Transportation Growth Management. It's a partnership between the Department of Land Conservation and Development and Oregon Department of Transportation, basically looking holistically, and this is kind of a sub-program focusing on quick response actions, but looking holistically at how transit can be used to grow more efficiently, essentially is the overall intention of the project.
Other comments? With hearing none, I would entertain a motion if there's one. Ready?
So I move to adopt resolution number 2006 and direct the city manager to apply for funds from the TGM Quick Response Program for the purposes of drafting a trolley rapid transit plan.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Councilor McKeel, and the second, Councilor Lopez. Any further discussion or any discussion on this now that we've framed that? Councilor Ridgway.
Hi, just one question. Is there a dollar amount affixed to the grant that you're seeking?
That is a great question. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't answer that. Is it included in the report?
I believe it says financial implications. There are no financial match requirements.
Yeah,
for
there'll
this
be
grant.
no match requirements on our end or Independence's end, but I don't know exactly what the total dollar amount we'll be seeking is. It'll be for a study. I would expect in the $20,000 to $50,000 range.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. If that's the case, it's the resolution. I think it requires a roll call, Phyllis. To the roll call, please.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
Counselor Ridgway,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Lopez.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
The next item on the agenda, thank you, Counselor Oberst. Discussion, a little bit of an update on the Bonneville Power Administration and its relationship with the federal government at the moment and how all that's going. Wade Carey.
Members of council, Mayor Pro Tem Carey, Mayor Kuntz, thank you for the invite to come and provide you with an update on what is happening with Bonneville Power Administration and the federal reduction in force activities that's been taking place. I reached out to our account executive at BPA last week and got some up-to-date numbers on what is taking place and how many people they have lost. As of that time, they had lost 400 employees, roughly, which of their 3,100 staff, which is a reduction of about 13 to 14%. 230 of those current employees took the deferred resignation offer. 90 people who were in the hiring process with BPA, so they already had a job offer and they were just going through the background checks. Those were halted and their offers were pulled. 100 probationary employees who had been working there, and BPA's probations vary in length depending on the position. They were let go. It was originally about 130, but they have rehired 30 back, and most of those were in the transmission department. The rest of them were just a wide range of folks throughout the agency, so they don't have exact numbers on who came from power or admin or IT or whatnot. It's kind of all over the place. The interesting thing that the region, the utilities are all stating is there are absolutely zero tax savings associated with this reduction in force. BPA is completely funded through the sale of power. They receive no federal appropriations. So the effort to reduce their numbers has no impact on the federal budget nor the federal deficit. For us here at our level in Monmouth, we're not expecting too much disruption. There is always a chance. This is a pretty big deal for the region, given some of the locations. I just sat in on a Public Power Council update yesterday afternoon, where they highlighted some of the things that they're most concerned about. There's a few substations that are deemed very critical that were scheduled for some work that they're now unsure about that work taking place. They've had some transmission projects in the works that, again, they're uncertain about the status of those. So far, the response in the region has been pretty tremendous. Public Power Council, Northwest Requirements Utilities, and the Oregon Municipal Electric Utilities Association, which we're a member of all those trade lobby groups, and other lobby groups have all been sending a slew of letters to the White House, to the Secretary of Department of Energy, voicing our concerns about reliability, future-looking projects, and what all this means. It's even gotten to the point where past BPA administrators, Randy Hardy and Steve Wright, have chimed in to voice their concerns about reliability and safety of the grid. We're also all keeping an eye on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation. Those two agencies are responsible for the operation of all the federally owned dams. So there's a lot up in the air. Really how this, I think, is going to impact us over the next 5 years per se is the Northwest, as well as other parts of the country, has a tremendous shortage of transmission. And that's what Bonneville was really That's why they rehired those probationary period or probationary employees back into the transmission department, because that is the thing that we need most right now. Is the transmission grid is constrained, it's congested. Without improvements, it's difficult to bring on new generation sources. And so that's what the utilities are mostly concerned with right now. Yes, there is a chance that with a short work staff or some maintenance projects that get pushed out a little bit longer, that we could see some reliability issues. But that's a little more in the background for our major concern. Right now, it's, there's a lot of work that's been going on to add generation, and now that's going to be really difficult to do without some new transmission projects. So that's all we really know right now. We don't know if there's going to be another round. BPA did lose some high-ranking senior officials. Most of us were really concerned about the administrator leaving and taking the early out, but as of right now, he is not. And so we're all just kind of sitting back and watching, just as everybody else, and waiting to see what happens. But it is contentious. It is worrisome. And, it could be another 6 months till we finally see what shakes out and where we're all standing. So.
Thank you for that. Council, any questions for Mr. Carey? Councilor Lopez.
Thank you very much, Council President Carey. Thank you for this update. This is a sobering update about some real world implications from some of the, frankly, troubling policies of the current administration. Is there any hope that the state or the two states, right? Bonneville kind of straddles both states to some extent, will step in and help to fill any of the gaps that are being created by these federal policies?
Well, I should have added that currently the Northwest delegation is very involved back in Washington, D.C. in some of these discussions with the current administration to try to rectify some of this. I mean, really the biggest head scratcher here is if the reason for the reduction in force was to save tax dollars, this does not do that. So as far as outside of legislative support from the Northwest delegation, and Bonneville actually serves 7 states. It serves Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, part of California, and a part of Nevada. So the delegation of the Pacific Northwest in these states is really active in trying to just push that message home that we get, we see what you're trying to do, whether we agree with it or not, but what you're telling us you're attempting to do is not going to have any impact by pushing people out at BPA. And BPA is not the only federal power marketing agency across the country that is going through this. So, we're all just kind of sitting back and going, why is this happening? Because you're not achieving the goal that you stated, that the administration stated they were after. So, but outside of the political delegations of these states chiming in and working behind the scenes to try to get some changes, there's not a whole lot the states can do, right? They don't operate the grid. They don't own the equipment. They don't have any part of that. So we're all just kind of sitting here waiting and watching.
Thank you. That's valuable information. A follow-up question. In the past, having our own municipal power utility has insulated us from some of the costs associated with, the larger power utilities. We've been able to maintain tier 1 power. We've been able to have more local control over how this is run. Are there any direct things that you currently see that would impact, aside from the lack of stability in the broader system, but that could impact our stability in terms of pricing, in terms of power availability? locally here? And I recognize there's broader questions that aren't answered, but is there anything that you're seeing or anything that, directly could correlate to the things locally?
Well, the reduction in force at BPA certainly won't hurt our rates because there is that. But, I was just having a conversation with the city manager today. When we start to compare especially our rates with rates of the IOUs, Pacific Power, PGE, it's really not it's not an apples to apples thing. So they have a whole different economy because of how they operate, where they get their power and whatnot. They just don't have the benefits that we have of getting that preference power from Bonneville. So because we are a full requirement customer of Bonneville, there's not a whole lot we can do outside of what we're already doing. I mean, we are dependent upon them. And Bonneville owns and operates almost, I think it's about 72% of the electric grid in its service territory. Pacific Power does have a big chunk, and PGE does have too. And all those lines are shared and interconnected. So, there's for us, outside of the reliability of the grid, there's not a whole lot we could do aside from BPA. We would not want to go out on the open market and try to buy our own power. There's no benefit there. So we're really in the best situation that we can be in, but we are kind of, in the same campground that BPA is with their situation.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Madam Mayor, I just noticed that your hand, it just came down.
Yeah, I Director Carey answered a question that I was going to ask, and that is how this interfaces maybe with the investor-owned utilities and sharing staff, or is that, are we concerned? Also today, Oregon Live reports that the federal government is putting Bonneville Power's building on the market. Not sure where those people will work now, but maybe some more savings coming our way. But yeah, I think you answered my question. Thanks, Wade.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, any other questions for Director Carey? Thank you, sir. Good information. A bit troubling, but nonetheless not unexpected. And I trust you'll keep us up to date.
Yeah, if anything new comes along, I'll absolutely make sure to pass it on to the city manager so she can pass it on to you if anything of grave importance comes up. That's actually, I did see a headline today where some of the federal buildings in Portland were being put on the market. I had not heard that the BPA building was one of those. So I'll have to look into that. And if I find anything outside of just that general statement, I'll be sure to get it to the city manager so she can pass it along.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our work session. And this is a review of the emergency shelter written comments that were provided when that decision was being made. And as we get to that, I want to just remind us that we had, the council decided that they would like to have the decision on the emergency siting of the shelter, a 300 stadium, to be made by staff, and that we would provide an opportunity for written testimony. And that testimony period was open and from the 9th until the 30th of December. And just as a reminder, and maybe not to step on your report, but one of the reasons we wanted to do that was that the comments could be well thought out, well crafted, and not to be constrained by a 3-minute time period with me running the clock. So we felt like that would get us a good reflection of the feeling that those that chose to comment had. So, and now that's in the public record, those comments are, and we'll be anxious to hear, from Carter and Suzanne on their thoughts on this and what our review should look like.
Yes, absolutely. So as Councilor Carey mentioned, there was a open comment period for written testimony between December 9th and December 30th. We received 35 pieces of testimony during that period. Of those 35, 22 generally indicated opposition to the shelter. They cited reasons such as public drug and alcohol use, loitering, theft, and vandalism spilling out onto adjacent properties, the location being perhaps unfairly or inefficiently clustering high needs populations in one part of the city, the lack or the experience of the operator was insufficient, or that the fire access, there were disqualifying fire access issues. There were 11 comments that generally indicated support. They cited that there was a demonstrable need for the shelter in the community. They had positive experiences with the operator, that the transitional style of shelter in particular was a missing piece of the continuum of care in our area, and then it filled a specific kind of need. And then generally that other criteria had been met. I for the purposes of analysis, broke comments into one of those two categories, although many comments had a balance of issues and raised multiple points and really grappled with it. I think the written testimony format gave people a lot of opportunity to itemize and fully flesh out what their concerns and what their points were. So I think it was a very valuable format. I think these comments are valuable moving forward because they helped us identify issues for us to monitor in the context of our ordinances and other laws. And then I would also report that 4 of those comments expressed the desire to see the city and the shelter work on a complaint process of some sort. And that's all I have in terms of summarizing the report, and I'm happy to talk about questions unless Suzanne has anything.
Okay, council, questions? Senator, God, thinking about it. Councilor Belts.
I got promoted somehow. Thank you. Wow. I noticed in the council packet, the letters go all the way back to the date in which we originally had considered this. So are you counting all of those or just in the 30-day comment timeframe?
Yeah, this report is an analysis of all of the comments we received since May, and sort of in the larger context, that's when the conversation around Church in the Park and the potential shelter shifted to the Stadium Drive site. And then there were also 2 comments that we accepted and incorporated that were received after December 30th.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Councilor Ridgway.
Thank you. So I read through the comments that were submitted by members in the community. Most of the concerns that were voiced had to do with the one area of the law that's a little bit more discretionary, that addresses will not pose any unreasonable risk to public safety or public health or safety. So that, and actually it's kind of coincidental that we had our new community service officer here today, but I'm wondering about thoughts on how we would address concerns. Many of the people that submitted their concerns were nearby residents. Likely they would be the first to notice if there were issues, safety or health issues. Other than our community service officer driving by and noticing things, what would our process look like in terms of addressing those concerns?
That's a great question. Oh, and Michelle's probably got a better answer.
Well, no, do you want me to answer that? So it would be the same as any code enforcement. If someone called in, we would tell them to please call the police department to submit a complaint, and then it would go into Donovan's queue and then be processed. That's the basic process for code complaints. Did I answer your question, Councilman?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Just with the, when something new comes into town, usually there's more interest in it, and I think it might generate some additional traffic, so to speak, in that reporting line. So hopefully we're able to respond to those and send a message to our citizens that that this is being looked at seriously and that people are welcome to continue to express their concerns.
Councilor Lopez.
Thank you very much, Council President Carey. And thank you very much for compiling this information. I found your analysis and assessment of the letters extremely helpful. A common thread throughout the letters, as well as throughout comments in these chambers tonight, has been some level of concern over how we will monitor this program. And those are my words, not the words used in the letters. Oftentimes, some of the terms used in the letters are, creating a grievance process or looking at different ongoing evaluations or response to this property. My question, and it may be best directed at our city manager, but anyone who's interested in responding, please do, is quite frankly, what role does the city have in that space? To my knowledge, there's not any other entity within the city that we have a specialized grievance process or special response process for. Aside from, of course, things that are involving the sale of alcohol, marijuana, controlled substances, or city-owned facilities, right? So I'm kind of confused as to where the city's role even would or could be in that space or in that regard.
Sure, I'll take a shot at that. We're in a little bit of uncharted territory here in that the statute speaks to the siting of an emergency shelter. It doesn't speak to any long-term management or of that site. So I think we approach it just the way Rochelle said, that the shelter has been approved, and now it must operate in conformance with all of the city codes regarding, everything else that we enforce in city code, refuse, nuisance, just also, whatever it is, condition of the buildings, those kinds of things. And that really, now it is an allowed use, and it is subject to all of the city code provisions, the same as every other use and every other property that is. I don't think there's a special process here. It really is a matter of the just maintaining it in compliance with the code. One question that really has never come up yet is, for instance, the state statute says they has to be operated by a nonprofit organization that has certain qualifications using best practices. Well, what if hypothetically Church at the Park were to say we're out of here and hand it off to another organization to operate that has no track record, that may not qualify? Does that somehow violate the approval and render it an illegal? We don't know. And I hope that we're not the city that has to test that case. But there's really nothing to set up for that. It's just going to be a matter of they're in the community. I think it'll be apparent what's going on there. And if there are complaints, they'll be dealt with, as Rochelle said, by code enforcement or law enforcement if there are complaints of criminal activities, just the same as any other property.
Thank you very much for that. And I thought that likely would be the case. To sum that up in my understanding, we already have processes for those things, and we would follow those processes. Is that essentially it?
For the record, that's correct.
Thank you. Since this is a work session, I'll share a couple other thoughts about reading the body of letters that we received about this. One common thread that I saw in these letters is that there is an immense level of pride in our community. And I know that the letters, came in on either side of this issue, but that's one thing that I saw throughout all of them. A love for the community, a desire to keep it safe, a desire to keep people in it safe, and a desire to make sure that it works for everyone. And I believe that through this process, through reviewing these letters, through reviewing the process as we have established, we have those processes in place, many of which our council just Council Shatterly just listed for us. We have these safeguards in place to ensure that this remains a thriving, rich community, and that this is one component of it, like many other businesses, many other developments that have come into and through the community over the years. And so, I, for one, am grateful for the opportunity to read these letters. And I know that we've received a lot of testimony on either side of this issue, but I'm just thankful of how rich of a community we have, and how caring and vibrant of that community we're part of. So I think there's a lot of strength here, and thank you.
Other comments? I would remind, and I believe this is the case, that we're still in that 60-day window of appeal. So I think the first week in April is when that window closes. So I think it's, hopefully we'll just stick with, let it ride for the moment. Once the issue is resolved, it might be valuable for us to have a conversation about and a revisiting of the process, the timing of some of the things that we don't need to bring up now, but at some point, just so to make sure that we've got some clarity. I'd be happy to talk offline on that, but we're likely to have another one, another application. And so we'd want to be as airtight and as comfortable with the process that you guys set up. But you all ought to be as comfortable with the process that you set up. It is a staff decision. We've decided that. But there might be some consideration that perhaps it would improve, perhaps it wouldn't improve it, just in terms of accepting the comment and so forth. So anyway, good work. Got through it just fine, and it seemed to be exemplary work. Okay, nothing else on the work session. Thank you very much. Nice job, folks. Okay, that takes us to reports. And Madam Mayor, I'm in your bulging briefcase. You might have some reports for us.
I do. Thank you, Council President Carey. Thanks you for stepping in on this. One couple things. First of all, our fabulous community awards ceremony put on by the Chamber of Commerce last week. Really appreciate that opportunity to celebrate the businesses and individuals that make our community great. I'm glad to be able to be there. Also, I had an opportunity last week to speak at a class at Western Oregon, an American politics class, and really great to have some engaged students from the university interested in learning more about the town and what we do as counselors, how we affect the city that they call their temporary home. And I got a good invitation into them to join us, to volunteer and become more engaged in some of our boards and commissions. So I hope they take me up on that. It just so happens that the professor who invited me is the person we spoke of earlier about the Burn to Learn event. So I will reach back out to him individually and let him know that this one's coming up. So those were a couple great things going on this last week, and appreciate the opportunity to call it. I can't wait to hear what else is going on around town with everybody.
Okay, other reports from boards and commissions. Councilor McKeel.
Thank you, President. I have a couple reports. One is from the Historic Commission. They had a meeting last week. And they aren't doing a lot of extra work because they are planning for an incredible Historic Preservation Month celebration. Mark your calendar for May 10th. Festivities, I heard, are supposed to start at 10:30 a.m. here at City Hall with the New Horizons Orchestra. They'll be performing. There's also going to be a special presentation by a history architect. And that person will be making a presentation about the recently completed Southwest Heights Historic Society study, not society. I'm going to start that whole thing over again. I'm looking over there at Miss Duffner like, and she's going, yeah, you're failing this whole thing. So there will also on May 10th be a presentation by a history architect about the recently completed Southwest Heights Historic Study. I got it that time. Okay. All right. The next Historic Commission meeting will be on March 25th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall or over Google Meet. And now I have another one.
Go.
I also attended my first Transportation Commission. And Councilor Oberst, I have to say, I really enjoyed learning. So thank you for passing the baton on that one. It's been one meeting and I learned so much.
Good bunch, isn't it?
It really is. So the commission briefly discussed the update of the Monmouth Transportation System Plan. Over the last couple of years, we've held a lot of town halls. And in the process of those town halls, we had over 130 ideas that were presented to be part of our new transportation system plan. And Linda Bersani, the Transportation Commission Chair, I don't know how she did this, but she tracked that there were over 40 ideas related to bike and pedestrian improvements. So thank you to the people of Monmouth for bringing in some really nice ideas for our new transportation system plan. The consultants now are really hard at work trying to take all these suggestions and incorporate them into this new plan. And I heard the data is being compiled. The next step is to present the plan to the Planning Commission before it comes to council. And the plan is to bring that presentation no later than July. The commission also got an update on the Safe Routes to School project, and Councilman Oberst, I know you've talked about this a little bit. It is nearly complete. There's just a few items remaining. Some of those are pretty obvious because they are the flashing beacons that you'll see being installed on Church and 99. And then they'll also be installing one at Heffley and Main Street. And then some curbs need to be painted that yellow, don't park here, to decrease congestion and improve visibility in the school zones. And so now we have continuous sidewalks from Gwen Street south all along up into along Heffley up to MES and east to west from 99 past the S curve. So we've got a lot of safe areas for people to be walking. So with that, I would just like to offer a kudos to David Carr with the Public Works Department, who administered the program. He secured the grant money and then coordinated the project to get our kids safer today because of that work. And actually all the other folks that were involved with that project. So I'm really proud of this Monmouth moment of getting our kids safe. The next phase of the Safe Routes to School project is going to be the education part. And the Transportation Commission intends to start working with the school district to increase kids' awareness of street safety. And there's members of the commission who are interested in motivating kids to walk and bike more. My favorite pastime there, so that'd be good. And the last 2 years, I know that you have heard the commission has held some bike rodeos, so I think they're looking at doing that again. Another issue that came up, Chief Haynes talked about residents' concerns with pedestrian safety in the crosswalks along Main Street. And police officers did a few stops of the drivers who were not paying attention to the pedestrians who were trying to cross the street at those crosswalks. So note to all of us to kind of stay alert for people standing at the curbs at crosswalks. And thank you to Sabra Jewell, a Monmouth Communications Director, who sent out a reminder to drivers we need to kind of get our act together with that. And just a note to pedestrians, I heard there in my learning about this is if you want to cross the street at the crosswalk, stand at the curb. Don't stand like in the grass. You have to be at the curb to trigger the drivers to stop, to let you go.
You actually have to put yourself in jeopardy and put your toes across the curb and into the street to make the driver be in violation, which shocks me, but the chief has explained that to me repeatedly. You have to put your toes in the street.
I'm just going to stand at the curb.
Good. Safer that way.
Yeah. So also the Transportation Commission did have a guest who brought a safety concern to everyone's attention. He provided some very enlightening photos that showed that there's a visibility problem in the intersection of Broad and Gwynn. And it's creating an unsafe intersection of drivers not seeing each other, obviously, which is why it's an unsafe intersection. So the commission is passing on a recommendation that the city needs to extend the yellow paint on the curb a bit more to improve the visibility. And the commission also recommended that the city collect more data about the traffic that goes through the intersection. And Russ Cooper will be bringing that issue to the council in the next couple months. So heads up there, Mr. Arden. And our next meeting is Monday, June 7th at 7 p.m. at the police station or over Google Meet. We were busy.
Yes, you were. Councilor Belts.
Just to add on to that, it's not just at a crosswalk. Every intersection is a crosswalk, whether it's labeled or not in the state of Oregon. So even if you're standing there and there's no lines, but you're at an intersection, you as a driver must stop. Thank you. I will be reporting on my very first Arts and Culture Commission meeting. It was actually the best meeting for me to be, for it to be my first one, for two reasons. One, they discussed their strategic plan in significant detail. Most of the takeaways from that have to do with what is their capacity, what are their plans, what would they like to do in terms of events, what their funding is, etc. The most exciting part was, though, they discussed the installation of the new art that is out there in the hallway, which art made by Bruce Belts. So if you have an opportunity to go look at the art, I think it's pretty awesome. You know, I was going to do what Cease always does and say no relation, but I can't do that. And then the next Arts and Culture Commission meeting is April the 17th, right here in this room. Thank you.
Councilor Olbers.
I have two. After not being available for the January Senior Center Senior Advisory Board meeting, I did make the one at the end of February, and it was amazing what our director is up to. And I'm not going to give you everything, but just a few highlights. She put in a letter of support for the city working with businesses and wineries around to sort of assess our accessibility. So that was just a small piece. We have the possibility of Spectrum Artworks across the street offering some classes, specifically pastels and block print making. And there will be tuition involved, but the store will donate a portion of that back to the Friends of the Senior Center. So, nice little program there. There's a group called Snap Ed, Food Hero, and they are going to be offering cooking classes for people who are cooking for only one or two people. And there will be a focus on both nutrition and what do you do with your leftovers and how to keep them available for later consumption. There was a meeting at Center 50 Plus in Salem, so the Salem Senior Center, that involved directors from senior centers all around this area, Polk and Marion counties especially. And they had an online presentation from an outfit down in San Diego, which in San Diego County, there's 40 senior centers, and they have created a foundation to help with funding of the senior centers, but also focused on kind of the dismissal that seniors sometimes face and how to improve the attitude towards seniors and senior centers in our society. So there is a consideration afoot of a Marion Polk senior center foundation, and specifically to help some of our smaller senior centers that are out there that don't have an actual senior community center like we do, to improve their programming and their functioning. So I thought that was, right on the money and exciting to see what comes out of that effort. There will be a climate cafe at 7:00 on the 27th for people to come in and discuss and hear about ideas around how to have an impact on climate change. And I know that this will devastate everyone here, but soup and pie on the 20th this month. Be there. What's that? Okay. And then the other one I wanted to let everyone know about is the tree board. In the newsletter that came with our power bill or online, there's a small article about the tree planting program. Last year, as you may remember, we put together a program that split the cost of a tree up to $50 a piece between the city and the property owner. And we presented it as a contest, and everybody enter, in the top 10 people drawn will get trees, but we only had 7 entrants. So everybody got a tree. We're hoping for a better turnout this year. So if you, and last year it was limited to those with no front yard trees. And this year, if you already have a tree in your front yard, that's okay. Come get another one. If you would like to split the cost of a tree with the city up to $50 a piece, please enter this contest. The entries will run from, and I've lost the dates. March 10th to April 11th. I just spotted it. Thank you, Saber. March 10th to April 11th. And then if we have more than 10 entrants, we will draw winners of the trees. Now, last year it was wide open. Tell us what kind of tree you'd like. And we found ourselves with 7 trees planted, 6 different kinds of trees. And it was a little bit of a scramble to find them. So this year we've tried to limit it a little bit, and a couple of members of the tree board sat down with a local nursery's list of available trees and put together a nice broad list that includes things like flowering cherries and dogwoods, but then also shade trees like maples. If you like ginkgo trees, female ginkgo trees, yes, they have gender, will leave little ginkgo fruits all over the place. So it's male only species or a variety of ginkgo. Redbuds, one of my favorite trees, is on the list. Crepe myrtles, and there's a few others. So that list will be made available, and once it's settled, and we'll see what people want to have by way of trees this year. And that's all I have on trees. Next tree board meeting is the 20th at Power and Light. The senior advisory board has one member who can't make the current meeting time, and so it's up in the air exactly when the next meeting will be.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst. Other reports? All right. That'll move us then to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Council President. The first thing I'd like to recognize is that Suzanne Duffner and Carter Craig worked in partnership with Polk County Soil and Water Conservation District and the Lucky Mute Watershed Council and received a $33,000 grant. And this was to be able to plant 80 trees in the Ash Creek restoration area. So very excited about that. I'd also like to let you know that Saber Jewel applied for a grant through CIS, and this is for a drone, I believe, training and certification. And she found out last night she was awarded that. And they will also give us $1,000 towards the purchase of the drone that was purchased a little bit ago. So that's very exciting. She'll be doing some training and working with possibly the police department and Public Works, and we'll see what we can get that drone useful for. I'd also like today to mention that today is Western Oregon University's Giving Day. And you can go online and give to your preferred fund. All funds raised on Giving Day count towards the 20 million Wolves Rising project. I'm also excited to announce that a new French bistro, Cafe Eula, is in the permitting process and going to be coming into downtown Monmouth, hopefully in the next couple of months. So we're very excited about that. I believe they're going to be right next to City Hall. I'd like to update you that the council chambers, the audio and visual upgrade that we've spoke about before, that will be taking place next week here in council chambers. So a crew will be here through the week getting all of that going. So for our next council meeting, we should have our new system up and running. See, just to let you know, for tomorrow afternoon, I have been asked to be on the Dallas Police Chief City Manager interview panel. So I will be there for the afternoon going through those interviews. And then I leave on Friday for my DC trip that I was awarded through the League of Oregon Cities for the National League of Cities. So I will be there Friday through the following Thursday. One other thing, Troy Crafton, our fire marshal, had talked about the burn and learn that the chief spoke about. They need items, household items or clothing, those types of things to stage the burn and learn. So if you have anything that you need to, dispose of, let me know and we'll get you in contact with Troy Crafton and then we'll get that set up. And he needs those items by March 14th. So I'm not sure if someone mentioned the Dress Like Fred Day, which is March 20th is going to be a big day because it's Dress Like Fred Day for the trolley, or second annual, I think. And then the State of the Cities event is that morning at Independence Convention Center at 8:30 a.m. And then there's also the Pie and Soup Day that was also mentioned. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Rochelle. Excellent report. All good news. That brings us to council comments. I would like to make the first, and that's thanks to the Scouts for being here. And you heard some things about bicycle and pedestrian safety and that sort of thing, and hopefully you can integrate that into your lessons and your leaders in the community, so you could help pass that information on, and we'd all be thankful for that. And I would also just say that we had a tree planting in Gentle Woods Park, which I may or may not have been. That's in the the Ash Creek area, and it's bank stabilization and shade and water cooling. And Russ coordinated that with the Friends of Gentle Woods and the Lucky Watershed Council. And it was good, and we got, I don't know how many trees we got in there, but we got a lot of them, and hopefully they all make it through the growing season and the dry summer. So that's my comment. Other comments, please, that you have. Carol.
Yeah, thank you, President. I just would like to do a commendation to the Central Girls Cheerleading. They won the 5A, 6A state championships that was held at Oregon City High School on February 16th. Really cool. Ariana Williams was named the OSAA Athlete of the Week. So, and just a kudos to Coach Megan Watkins Smith and her staff. It's really a proud moment for our lady cheerleaders and really made Monmouth proud. So kudos to the team and to the coach.
There are actually a couple of young men on our team as well.
Very good.
I sit corrected. Thank you for that, Mayor.
Other comments? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I was looking for you. Gotta wake up, my friend. These guys are awake. Come on now.
They are. I'm glad they're here.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, President Carey. Just in continuing what I hope to be a ongoing exercise in education and review and in unity, I wanted to read from the U.S. Constitution in Article 1, Section 2 tonight. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the United States, by the people of several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and of 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed 3/5 of all other persons. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States, and within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative until such enumeration shall be made. The state of New Hampshire shall be entitled to choose 3, Massachusetts 8, Rhode Island and Providence Plantations 1, Connecticut 5, New York 6, New Jersey 4, Pennsylvania 8, Delaware 1, Maryland 6, Virginia 10, North Carolina 5, South Carolina 5, and Georgia 3. When vacancies happen in the representation from any state, the executive authority thereof shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. The House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and other officers and shall have the sole power of impeachment. Coming next time, section 3. Thank you.
Congratulations on getting through that. That's tough reading. Good information, but difficult reading. Okay, Councilor Lopez.
Thank you, Council President Carey. And I'd like to extend my thanks to the scouts here with us tonight. I'd also like to extend my thanks again to Councilor Ridgway for his continued reading of our Constitution. Article 1, Section 2. I promise I'm not going to go into a civics lesson tonight. However, I feel compelled to speak on the subject matter of Article 1, Section 2. This is an important document. This is a living document. This is a document that impacts our lives on a daily basis. This past year, there was a challenge here in Oregon on the basis of Article 1, Section 2 of an individual running, potentially running as a representative here of the state, determined that they had not met the residency requirement. So these things are real. They impact our real lives. But what I wanted to call your attention to was how they counted representation. And there's a line in Article 1, Section 2 referring to 3/5 of all other persons. I want to call out that this is not how we count representation today, and that this is a living document, and it has been amended, and those amendments are central and crucial to our democracy and our values as a country. And so I, for one, am excited that we're reading the Constitution. I am particularly excited to read through the amendments, as these are areas of this Constitution that have been tested and ultimately changed as our society grows and improves. So I encourage you all to look into that a little bit more, and we no longer honor that 3/5 that was detailed in the original Constitution. All people are created equal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lopez. Councilor McKeel.
Thank you, President. I would just, on the note of the non-representation of Indians, would like to read the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that indigenous tribes and bands have been on the lands here and throughout Oregon since time immemorial. It is not lost on us that the Willamette Treaty forcibly removed these peoples from their homelands in 1855 to 1856, the year that the city of Monmouth was founded. We recognize the pre-existing and continued sovereignty of the federally recognized tribes that are a vibrant part of this region today. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and thank them for sharing the perspective on how we might care for one another and the land so it can take care of us. We commit to engaging in a respectful and successful partnership as stewards of these lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKeel. Any other comments? Madam Mayor, we look forward to you being back next time. Thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully didn't grind your teeth too much as we slugged our way through.
You did a great job. I'll be home in time tomorrow night for the Council of Governments meeting and the installation of Roxanne Belts as the chair of the board of the Council of Governments. So see y'all there.
That'll be a big deal. All right. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I got you.
Okay, I'm Councilor McKeel with with that, and as try as Oberst might, he's not as quick as he used to be.
Second.
And second isn't needed. So all in favor of adjournment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.